What's happening, people? Welcome back to the Isolation Ratcave. It's Ratsy here for DJKit, and I'm feeling pretty spoiled today. As you can see, I've got a bit of a controller overload going on here. In this video, I'm going to be comparing the brand new Numark Mixtrack FX controllers head to head with the Pioneer DDJ-SB3 and the Pioneer DDJ-400. So first and foremost, I'm going to start off with actually comparing the two Numark controllers because they're brand new. They've just been announced on the same day. So yeah, let's take a look at the Mixtrack Platinum FX up against the Mixtrack Pro FX. Now, as you can see, they are pretty much bang on similar in terms of sort of width, height, depth, that kind of thing. And they've both got these amazing 6-inch jog wheels, which like I said in my previous videos of these controllers, the actual individual reviews that I did of them both separately, that is a huge standout feature for me on these controllers because it's some of the biggest jog wheels that I've seen on controllers around this kind of entry level and the price range. So, but an obvious difference here is that the Platinum FX here has got in-screen display on the jog wheels, where it tells you various things, that the BPM of your tune, that how much time of the tune you've played, how much pitch you're faster and slower down the bottom here, the pitch range, which deck you're on as well. So that brings me on to the other main difference between the Platinum FX and the Pro FX, is that the Pro FX is a 2-channel Serato DJ controller, whereas the Platinum FX, you can go 4 decks. Now, apart from that, that is literally the main differences between these two. So little bit difference in price, obviously, with the Platinum FX coming up a little bit more expensive. But, you know, if you want the jog displays and you want the option to go 4 decks within Serato, then it's not really that much of a difference in price for that step up. But yeah, apart from that, like I say, all the effects are in the same place. You've got the same effects on both controllers. You've got the same performance pads with the same performance modes. And yeah, so it's just the fact you can go 4 decks on the Platinum and the in-jog displays. So now on to like comparing all 4 of them here. So the Platinum FX and the Pro FX and the SB3 are all Serato controllers, whereas the DDJ-400 here is a Rekordbox controller. Now, I know before the comments start blowing up about sort of virtual DJ mappings and algorithm DJ app mappings and stuff like that, I don't want to go into that because, you know, all of these controllers are MIDI mappable. But yeah, the main kind of software for the controllers is, like I say, Serato for the 2 Numarks and the Pioneer SB3, but it's Rekordbox for the DDJ-400. So let's have a look at the jog wheels on all of these units now. So like I said, I'm so impressed with the 6-inch jog wheels on these Numark controllers, you know, a fair size bigger than both of the Pioneers here. 6-inch or 152 millimeter size jog wheels on the 2 Numark controllers. The SB3 is 128 millimeter jogs, and the DDJ-400 is 111.5 millimeter jogs. So the 400's got the smallest size jog wheels out of all of them. And although it does look a similar size to the SB3, the SB3's jog is slightly bigger. Obviously as well, you know, the Mixtrack Platinum FX is the only one out of the 4 with the display screen inside the jog wheel. So next up, another big difference, sort of noticeable difference between these 4 controllers is the size of the pitch fader here on both of the Numark controllers. So the pitch fader on these Numark controllers, that's 100 millimeters, whereas the SB3's is only 45 millimeters and the DDJ-400 is 60 millimeters. However, what I do like about the Pioneer controllers is they've got a click when you get to 0 on both of the pitch faders here, whereas the Numark controllers don't have that, unfortunately. So while we're on the pitch bend as well, just to say that the Numark controllers have actually got dedicated pitch bend buttons here. So if you're not keen to kind of speed up or slow down your tune with the jog wheel, you can press and hold these buttons down here. Plus obviously speeds up the tune, minus slows it down. That's the case on both of these Numark controllers, whereas the Pioneer controllers, you don't have that option. You've only got the tempo sliders here, or you can speed it up or slow it down using the jog wheels. So as I said before, the Platinum effects, you can play up to 4 decks in Serato, but the Pro effects is only 2 decks in Serato. The DDJ-400, you can only play 2 decks within Rekordbox, but the SB3, you can go up to 4 decks in Serato as well. So kind of a head-to-head comparison between the Platinum and the SB3 really, as you can both play 4 decks on the both of them. So the way to get onto the 3rd and 4th deck on the SB3, these dedicated buttons up here. So as you can see, the deck 3 there, you just hit that to switch decks, and deck 4 over there to go from 2 to 4, you hit that one. Whereas on the Platinum effects here, you press the deck select here, which does double up as the scratch button as well, whether or not you want to turn scratch on or off. So on the Platinum effects, the deck select is the same as changing between the scratch mode or the normal kind of jog mode, whereas on the SB3, you've got a dedicated button to switch between the decks, and you've got a vinyl button over here, which changes between whether or not you want your jog wheel on kind of a vinyl feel or just a kind of normal jog feel. So when you touch it, it speeds up the tune or slows it down like that, rather than actually sounding and stopping the tune like a vinyl would. So on to performance pads now. Now all 4 controllers here have got 8 performance pads, but on the Mixtrack controllers, you can only use the top 4 pads if you're using them with Serato DJ Lite. If you've got these plugged in using them with Serato DJ Pro, you can use all 8 pads for the dedicated performance modes. But just to compare the actual performance modes between these 4 units, you've got 4 performance modes on these Mixtrack. So you've got Q, auto loop, fader cuts, and a sampler. Whereas on the Pioneer units, you've actually got 8 performance modes to use across the 8 pads. So on the SB3, you've got hot Q, effects fade, pad scratch, and a sampler. And then the secondary function, which is when you hold shift and hit one of the buttons along the top here, you've got beat jump, roll, slicer, and trans. Now on the DDJ-400, again, 8 different pad modes here with 8 different pads. You've got hot cue, beat loop, beat jump, and a sampler. And then when you hold shift, you've got keyboard, pad effects 1, pad effects 2, and key shift. Worth saying as well, the pads on the DDJ-400 are the smallest out of all 4 controllers here. The pads on the SB3 are the biggest, and obviously the pads on the 2 Mixtracks are the same size. Now, the cue and play buttons are all in the same place. Like I said in my previous review videos of the Mixtrack, it's so nice to have these not symmetrical anymore. So the cue and the play buttons are in the bottom left-hand side of both of the decks. The same here as on the Pioneer controllers. However, the buttons on the Mixtracks are square. You've got square cue, square play, whereas on the Pioneers, they are circular. Then the sync button is in the same place on the SB3 compared to the Numark controllers, whereas the sync button on the DDJ-400 is up here. So now let's take a look at the looping sections on these 4 controllers. So on the Numark controllers here, the instant loop section is down here in the bottom right-hand corner of both of the decks, which is the same for the SB3 here. As you can see, this is the auto loop function, and then the half or double the loop here. So in a similar place to the Numark controllers, on the DDJ-400, the looping section is up here on the top left. Now, this brings me on to kind of what makes this DDJ-400 different from the rest of these controllers here. So the DDJ-400 is laid out like a Pioneer kind of club standard layout, which is if you play on the higher end Pioneer mixers, the effects section is down here. The looping section on a CDJ is up here on the top left. And they've really tried to emulate that on this DDJ-400, whereas on these Serato controllers, it's laid out a little bit differently. So now then, let's take a look at the effects on these controllers. Now, as I mentioned before, the effects section on the DDJ-400 is where you would expect to see it on the Pioneer DJM mixer range. So all down here, this is your effects section. You turn your effect on, pressing this button down here. You've got your level depth here, which is the same kind of concept as the wet and dry that you've got on the Numark controllers. You select which deck you want the effect on. You can go deck 1, deck 2, or master using this switch. The effects select is here. So when you press that button, it scrolls through the effects within Rekordbox. So you have to be looking at your laptop to see which effect you're using. And then you change the beat with these two buttons here. Whereas on the Serato controllers, they are laid out slightly differently. Now, obviously, something which really stands out about the effects section on these Numark controllers is that they've got these paddles. Now, this is a new thing which Numark have brought in on the new mix tracks here. You can see them on higher end kind of battle scratch mixers, and the mixer on both of these Numark controllers is so similar. It's got the similar layout. It's pretty much exactly the same layout as their Numark Scratch battle mixer. So the difference between the Numark controllers and the Pioneer controllers when it comes to these effects here is you've actually got your 6 effects on the controller. So you've got high pass frequency, low pass frequency, flanger, echo, reverb, and phaser on both of these controllers, which you turn on by just hitting the button. Whereas, like I said, on the 400, you select your effect going down with that button there, and you have to be looking at your laptop. Now, on the SB3 controller here, the effects section is at the top. So you've got 3 effects per channel. So you hold Shift and 1 to filter through the effects in Serato to decide which effect you want. And then Shift is to change the beat on 2 and 3. And then you actually turn the effect on by just pressing the button. So you can have 3 effects going at the same time on this SB3, which you can't do on the Numark controllers, but you can, of course, double up the effects with the dedicated filter knobs here, which all 4 controllers have. So on the SB3, the filter knob is here, down here on the 400, and then on the Numark controllers, they are here. Now, as I mentioned before, on the DDJ-400, the level depth of the effect is here above the on and off switch. Now, on the Numark controllers, it's not called a level depth, it's called a wet and dry, which is up here above the actual effects buttons, and also the beats, so the amount of kind of the effect, how the effect is affecting the tune. You've got a dedicated knob on the Numark controllers, whereas you've got the buttons on the 400 here, and like I said, you have to hold Shift and 2 or 3 for the beats on the SB3. So all 4 controllers have got your browsing knob at the top of the mixing section here, and then your load buttons, which means that you don't really have to have your head stuck in your laptop when you're selecting tunes. And also all 4 controllers have got the instant doubles option, which means that you can load the same tune onto both decks. Now, all 4 controllers have got 3-band EQ here above the filter knob, and trim on a Pioneer, which is like the gain, or on the Numark controller, it's the same thing, but they call it a level. So now on to headphones. Now, the Numark controllers have got dual headphone inputs, which means you've got a 3.5mm headphone input, which is the little one, or you've got the 1/4-inch jack. So 2 headphone inputs on the Numark controllers, whereas the Pioneer controllers here have only got the 3.5. Also, when it comes to queuing your headphones, slightly different layout. You've got these 2 little headphone options here to queue the tunes on the Numark, whereas the SB3 has got this 1 or 2 button here, and the DDJ-400 has got a button labeled queue here, which again is kind of more similar to the DJM range. So all 4 controllers have got a dedicated headphone volume knob. It's here on the DDJ-400. It's up here on the Numark controllers, and it's in the middle here on the SB3. But the thing which the SB3 doesn't have compared to the other three controllers here is a cue to mix level. So what that means is basically what you're hearing in the headphones. So if you've got your cue button on and you've got this knob all the way over to cue, all you can hear is whichever tune you've got cued. Whereas if you've got that moved over to mix, you can hear everything that's coming out of the master. So great to have if you don't have a monitor. You know, it means that you can hear the master and the headphone cue in your headphones at the same time, so you can get your tunes in time. The SB3 doesn't have that, but it does have a dedicated master cue here. So, you know, you will be able to hear the master, but there's no volume control on it. So all four controllers have got the same inputs and outputs. It's a single RCA master out, so the red and the white, which is obviously on the back of all of the units. Then you've got your USB, because all of these controllers have to be used with a laptop. They are all USB powered as well, so there's no actual plug to go into a wall to be powered. They are powered by your laptop. Also, they've got one mic input, which is a 1/4 inch jack on the back of all four of the units. However, on the Pioneer controllers, the mic gain, so like the volume level of the mic, is on the back of the controllers, whereas on the Numark controllers here, the mic gain is up in the top left. Slightly different layout for the master level as well. The master level for the Numark controllers is up here in the top right. It's up here in the kind of top right of the mixer section on the DDJ-400, and it's up here in the middle of the mixer section on the SB3. So now then, which controller is best for you? Obviously here, if you want to be using Rekordbox, the DDJ-400 is the one for you, because these other controllers don't work with Rekordbox. Also, like I said before, the DDJ-400 is laid out, it emulates the kind of two CDJ and a mixer setup where the loops are on the controller and where the effects are down the side. So if you're playing on this and then going to play on a Pioneer setup in a club, you'll know exactly where everything is. So if you want to be using Serato, you know, you can take your pick out of these three here. The plus side of the DDJ-SB3 is that it's got more pad modes than the two Numark controllers. You've got 8 pad modes here, whereas you've only got 4 pad modes on these Numark controllers. However, an obvious kind of standout thumbs up for the Platinum effects here is the jog display. Also, in terms of effects, you know, the dedicated kind of effects on these Numark controllers is a massive standout feature. And also the paddles, you know, like that is a really, really like high-end thing for such a budget DJ controller. If you want to go 4 decks, then, you know, it's either the Platinum or the SB3. If 2 decks is okay for you, then it's the Mixtrack Pro effects. Now, in terms of price, the SB3 and the 400 come in at the same price. The Platinum effects here is slightly cheaper, and the Mixtrack Pro effects here is slightly cheaper than that. So the Pro effects comes in the cheapest out of all 4 here. And like I said at the beginning, for just a little bit more money, you can get the same controller, the same layout, the same effects, everything, but the jog displays and the ability to go up to 4 decks on this Platinum effects. Now, just to say a kind of similarity here between the new Numark controllers and the SB3, the fader cuts option along the pad modes here. So what fader cuts does on the Numark controllers is it's 4 different transform effects. So it's basically emulating hitting a crossfader to make scratch effects. Whereas on the SB3, you've got this pad scratch mode, which Jazzy Jeff actually developed with Pioneer. You've got 8 different scratches along the pads here. So that's quite a similarity between the SB3 and the 2 Mixtracks, in that they're kind of give a big nod towards like scratch DJs. Also kind of obvious with the paddles on these Numark controllers, and also with this line here along the jog wheel. That's something which you tend to see with vinyl scratch DJs. They put a line on their vinyl so they know where to drop their scratch samples. So I think that kind of concludes my comparison here, guys. All 4 controllers are absolutely brilliant. You know, really good for entry level, people that have never DJed before, people that used to DJ that want to get back into it, or maybe swapping from vinyl over to a digital controller, particularly, you know, scratch DJs. Like I said, there's plenty of nod to scratch DJs on the Numark controllers here and on the SB3. You can, of course, scratch on the DDJ-400 as well, but you know, these the Numark controllers and the SB3 have got those scratch modes along the performance pads, and obviously you've got the bigger jog wheels on the Numark controllers here, which may be more of a favorable feature for a scratch DJ. So which one of these 4 controllers would you pick? Stick your answer in the comments. You know, like the video, share the video, tag anyone that might be interested. Also remember to subscribe to the DJKit channel. There's plenty of other videos like this one, where comparison videos or equipment demos, which might be helpful for you making a decision on which controller or decks to purchase. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Until next time, stay safe. Peace.